Protestants think that you should have family. It's actually like a good thing. Yeah. Whereas Catholics see it more of as a concession from God, that marriage is
a distraction.
Not a distraction, but that the institution of marriage was given to us as a concession because St. Paul says it's better for man to be alone.
Right.
But we can have a wife, and it's viewed more as like an accommodation for mankind than it is a positive good in and of itself. And so it does come from a very Catholic place because Catholics have a strong tradition of monasteries, monastic life, ascetic life.
What are Nick Fuentes' views on marriage, on women, on isolation, on manhood? He talks to Joel Webbon. We're going to watch the entire clip. It's a really good clip. You got to stick around and watch it. But he breaks down manhood. He breaks down what it means to be a man. What is his viewpoint of manhood? The differences in Catholicism versus Protestantism, what their views on manhood are. Him and Joel Webbon do an exceptional job going off and breaking this thought down. We're going to take it all the way back. We're going to watch every single little bit of it. But in the meantime, I'm Jared Wright. This is The Right Wing. And if you enjoyed this content, if you like watching it, hit the buttons down below. Follow along because I post it every single day. Let's just dive into this clip and see exactly what Nick has to say.
But you were talking about, peak masculinity is virtually, you didn't say it exactly like this, but asexual. If you're like peak man, you live on a mountain in the Himalayas, something like that, in the woods, you're swinging an axe and you're so one with God and nature and so otherworldly that you forget that you even have, a penis between your legs, you're just like, and so for me, I think that part of this, and so I'm curious what you think, but I think part of it actually might be a Catholic Protestant divide.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to offend the Catholics, but that actually, and so I'm not saying this in a mean-spirited way, but I actually think that view is kind of consistent with Catholicism. Because when I think if I was a Catholic and I want to be the most valuable, God-honoring, benevolent to the world person I'd probably pursue the priesthood, which is asexual position.
Right.
It's Protestants where it's you've got pastors like me who have so many kids, you have to buy the bus, the minibus, to drive. So that's kind of like a distinctly Protestant thing. Now, Catholics, obviously, Catholics have big families. But when you think of because the way you worded it was not average masculinity. The average Catholic probably should have lots of kids and has historically. But you were saying peak masculine, one with God, one with the universe, one with nature, and just not thinking about sex. And so I thought immediately Catholic priest, is that part of what was in your mind?
Yes, 100%. And I have had this debate with Protestants, with Mormons actually, because, and I'm not familiar with all the Protestant theology, but I believe Protestants think that you should have family. It's actually like a good thing. Yeah. Whereas Catholics see it more of as a concession from God, that marriage is
a distraction.
Not a distraction, but that the institution of marriage was given to us as a concession because St. Paul says it's better for man to be alone.
Right.
But we can have a wife, and it's viewed more as like an accommodation for mankind than it is a positive good in and of itself. And so it does come from a very Catholic place because Catholics have a strong tradition of monasteries, monastic life, ascetic life, and really the complete repudiation of the world, of the flesh, and pursuing a life of modesty, poverty, chastity. And we see that as actually the most, the highest spiritual life, like you said, like it is for a priest, where a priest doesn't take a wife because he's focused on God. His only commitment is to God.
This is interesting. Quick interruption. Nick views this, and most Catholics view this as like a concession, as like a privilege, as like an honor. And I say Protestants see it as a privilege, but we try to honor God within our marriages because we believe it's the perfect representation of Christ loving the church. So we take our marriage and we make it as good as we can. We love our wives with all we have as Christ loved us. So it's kind of a parallel where our marriage actually spreads the gospel when done correctly. So there's a little bit of a difference there, just to kind of throw that out there. But I really like his points. I really like his points on manhood. So let's just keep watching.
God. So And it was from that place, and that is that's my unironic opinion. That was not a joke at all.
No, I could tell that one. I was like, he's saying it in a humorous way, but I was like, no, I think there actually are religious implications under this. There's a reason.
Right. And so, yeah, I do believe, and I identify that with masculinity. I think that the priesthood, I think that the monastic life is the most masculine, manly thing that a guy can do. And that's not my prescription for every man.
Right.
Because I tell my followers all the time, I said, the vast majority of people, they should get married. That is what is best for them.
Better to marry than to burn with passion.
Right.
Like it's like, well, I'm going to stay single so that I can do all these things in my work life and career, but I'm just going to be, sleeping around all the time. Well, then, no, you should get married.
Right.
But if a guy actually is capable, I believe it's a supernatural gift. So like what you're referencing was St. Paul, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, where he talks about celibacy. A lot of guys will say singleness is a gift. I think singleness is actually a curse, but I think celibacy is a gift. And so if you have the gift of celibacy, then all the negative effects, the loneliness, the difficult not having a helpmate, right? Eve is given to Adam as a helpmate. So like a life of loneliness in terms of companionship, a life of having to do a lot of things yourself instead of having a helpmate. I think that those are net negatives. So I think that's the suffering piece.
In our fight for this nation's future, we often forget the most important battleground, our own health. Whether it's seed oils or screens or hormone disruption chemicals, modern life is designed to destroy your body. All these stressors don't just make you feel tired, but they drain your energy at a fundamental level. That's where real alternative health makes all the difference. So, we've partnered with Nutricell. Their Blue Boost capsules use methylene blue, both to improve your energy and sharpen mental focus. For a limited time.
Come on, Joel. We don't care about that. Here we go. We're back in it. Sorry, we're getting ads from even Joel.
The supernatural ability not to be overcome by fleshly appetites, to where you could be single and have those challenges, but not sin. That's celibacy. So celibacy is a gift. Singleness is just a state of life, is the way that I would view. And then Paul also says, the man who's married, his interests are divided. How he can please the Lord, but also how he can please his wife. Whereas the one who is single can be in full devotion to the Lord. And that's why that's the argument that he gives for why it's better. He says, I think it's better to remain as I am, speaking of himself being single. But he says to each one is given a gift. And so marriage is a gift. And celibacy is a gift. So he's saying, if you have the gift of celibacy, remain single so that you won't be divided in your interests. And if you don't have the gift of celibacy, then it's should be assumed that providentially God has the gift of marriage awaiting. So what do you think?
I agree. And I think that you're right. For the vast majority of people, that's not really on the table. Celibacy is not, because most people have those, like you said, these very strong passions. And like you said, they burn with lust. So for most people, that is their vocation, is to be a husband and a father. But I do think that it is the higher state to be celibate if you're called for that, if, like you said, you have that gift, whether it's a monastic life.
That's basically the end of the clip right there. We're just going to dive it off. And, this is a very good point that they make. I think that celibacy is a special thing if you can say no to the flesh, because it's essentially fasting. It's saying no to the flesh and yes to God, to grow closer to God. But yet, this is not going to be possible for the vast majority of people to truly honor. And a lot of times it's not the will of most men, honestly, or women for that matter, but specifically in this sense, talking about men in isolation and manhood and this idea of like, I'm by myself and I don't even think about anything else. I just work. It's based in a way, but at the same time, there's something special about having a wife. I'm married myself. I love my wife. She helps me with so much. She keeps me in line. So sometimes men, we tend to go too far in certain jokes or what we say, she helps keep me in line, keep me centered on God. And I think that's special. That's what a helpmate is supposed to do. I pray that each and every single one of y'all end up with a helpmate like that or whoever you're watching. But Nick brings up good points about this idea that celibacy could bring you closer to the Lord. And Paul even speaks about that. He even speaks that perhaps you should fast sex within your marriage from time to time to grow closer to God, but don't withhold from one another. That's very important. And this is within a marriage concept. This is within marriage. This isn't crude. This is how God designed things. Yes, that's just a part of it. And how we honor God in each and every single thing that we do is what's incredibly important within this. You know, I want to honor God with my marriage. I think it does honor God. I think that it displays God's love through how I love my wife. And it displays how the church should honor Christ with how my wife honors me. I think that's a very important thing. And if you don't have that, that's what you want to look for. That's what marriage is. That's what it constitutes. So Nick and Joel do a phenomenal job of breaking this down, even from two different viewpoints, Catholicism and a Reformed Baptist, a Protestant. You know, it's very intriguing. It's very interesting. And I enjoy dialogue like this. I hope that you do too. You know, if this is something you enjoy the commentary on it, make sure to hit the follow, subscribe, the notifications, all the buttons down below. Because I post this stuff every single day so that you can watch it and enjoy it and learn just like I have. But anyways, I'm Jared Wright. This is The Right Wing, and I'll catch you next time.